Hello and welcome to Wikipedia Weekly Network here, where Albin Larsson and I, Jan Ainali, are editing Wikidata live. Hello, Albin. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you, Jan?
I'm great as well. We have had warm weather here today, so I had to take
Oh,
shorts to go out running.
oh, really?
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
13 degrees, so it was almost like a Swedish summer.
Yeah, I guess it's warm, but it's 6 degrees. So
Ah,
it's a
yes,
matter of
unusually, yeah.
where you are.
Yeah. So today we had some sort of idea of working a little bit of documentation and stuff, but we will be attacking that in different ways, I guess. What will you be looking at?
I would be starting off by making a bit of an issue for a thing that has annoyed me in the Wikidata query service for a while. So I
All
will
right.
show a fabricator and fill a ticket there. Um, and in case I got the time, I will also try to look into how to improve the documentation for the result views in the Wikidata query service.
Ooh, that's good. I actually looked at that today because I saw someone was asking about the bar charts, and that's one
Right.
of the results views that we do have. Yeah, nice.
And you, Jan, what is your plan?
Uh, I now that you said that you were making fabricator tickets, I hope that I will actually be able to record one of the bugs that I found when I tried this out.
Right.
I had an idea of adding an example to the examples in the Wikidata query service. It turns out, though, that page is a little bit overloaded because people are frequently adding a lot, and we're not really merging or selecting the best ones. So I guess for now, I will add it on another page. I'm actually going to show you this right straight away.
Yeah,
So we
let's
do,
jump into it.
yeah, let's just jump into it. So we have this examples page, and the things on this page is the things that we see in the examples over here. So that's actually editable from the Wikidata interface. And that's quite cool in a sense because we curate this together. But this page is a little bit too much right now, and there's some discussion on the discussion talk page, and there's a fabricator also a ticket about thinking about what we should do with this. And since my example that I wanted to add is one of advanced, I'm actually going to add this on this page. So it will not show up immediately, but it will be there for people who wants to dive in deeper. So we'll come back to this. But first, then I will actually need to construct my query. So I think that will be most of the time because actually adding something to the page is not that hard. So, and the idea I have is, and it's something that I had a need for earlier, was if I query for an image in Wikidata, it will also be very nice to get some metadata about the image from the query service so I can use it somewhere else. For example, who made it and the license and stuff like that. So that's what we're going to try today. And to do that, we need to combine it with the Commons, Wikimedia Commons API. But we're going to start first here by just selecting, and I know I want to have an image. So very simply, that's where we're going to start. So I'm not using another example for here. I'm actually starting very much from scratch. And you can pick any image you like really for this to work. So I'm just going to go with something that where I know there's an image. So I'm going to go with a Wikidata item for Norway actually, because I will be and I'm going to use the property for Wiki Voyage banner.
Right.
I'm going to call that the image. Let's just see what I get here. So very, very simply, just an image. And if I use the image grid here, we can also see it's a banner. So this is the one I'm going to try out in the example. But of course, if we go back to the view here, the table, this is probably not the right string, so we're going to need to transform that. But to know to what, we'll have to head to the API Sandbox on Wikimedia Commons. So that's a special page where you can try out the API, so which makes it possible for you to sort of like play around with what parameters you need to set and stuff like that. And I'm going to immediately here scroll down, and just for us to have it easier later, in this particular case, it will actually, we're going to see some more information in the XML format. So I'm going to switch that. It's set to JSON by default. And then, as often with queries, like 90% of the API queries I make, you want to, API calls, you're going to use the query. That's what I'm going to say. So scroll down to the query. That's what we're going to use. And then it's for the query, we're going to set some parameters. And handily, we have this drop-down list. And what we're wanting, since we want the information about the license, we want the image info. So we're going to tick that one. And then I think also down in the bottom here, we're going to use a generator here to pick our image. And that you could sort of do a search, but that can give you some false hits because the search is too friendly for you. So if we use the all pages, there's actually a trick to get exactly the one you want. You're going to create a list and start and stop with the same file. So that's the generator we're going to use. And I think that's enough on this level. Let's head down to, and here in the left, you see like what you have to work with. So you go to the prop image, and here we don't need a user or archive name or timestamp. What we need is the ext metadata, extended metadata. That includes all the information that we want. And that's all we need from here. And then we're going to go to the generator and help it. And we have this gap from and gap continue, or gap to. Gap from and gap to is the page title that we're going to use at start and stop. And maybe we should just, I'm going to click through here to Commons to get this one. So we can put it in here, put it in here. Hopefully this would be a good request. No, because I forgot something. We actually need to tell this to use the file namespace. Otherwise it won't get anything. And here we get a lot of information.
Right.
And things that we could use here is, for example, finding the artist, the license short name, like it's easy by SA 3.0, because that's very nice to show in whatever interface. And then it's also a very handy thing here, the license URL, the links to the, so that you can construct the link. Unfortunately, the artist value is a little bit like this has HTML in it. So you have to decide how you want to use that in your application. But for now, I'm going to work with this. So I'm going to try to get the artist, the license short name, and the license URL in my Wikidata query service here.
Right.
But as we saw, what I needed to put in here is this string. So we need to convert what we had here into that. So we could start working with binding this as something else. and we're going to call that filing. And what are we going to bind then? We're going to bind the image. If I just do this, it will just be the same. So let's first make this a string. I think that, or is it should be like this? Yes. So let's just try that and see what we get. How much closer do we get? All right.
And this is a nice visualization of that namespace prefix.
Mm-hmm.
Just like with WD inside of the actual SparkQL, we see that in the result query, we also got this commons, which is just a shortcut for a certain Wikimedia Commons URL.
Yes, and we can see this. This is also actually if you're using images from outside of Wikimedia Commons, this special file path is actually a really good thing. You can use it to get to your image. So here's a trick we're going to use now. I only want this part. I don't want this part. So I'm going to split this string. And in Sparkle, there's something called string after or strafter. So I'm going to use here the strafter. Spelling is good. Strafter, it turns red. I recognize that there's something. So I'm going to strafter this. And what's in between here is what it's going to take everything after. You could sort of cheat and just say, well, the thing after file path, that's what I want. You might run into a problem if there's some image that has the file path and slash. So if you want to be safe, take this entire thing because all images will have that.
Right. But on Wikimedia Commons, they can't have the slash, right? Or can they?
They shouldn't. Yeah. No, I don't think they can.
Right.
So it might be safe on Commons, yeah. Let's see what we get here. So here we got this, but this is also some sort of safe encoding. So
URL
we'll have,
encoded.
Yeah. Yes. So we'll have to decode that. And there's actually a Wikibase command for that. So we'll go with Wikibase. Let's do it like this. Decode. And unfortunately, this one is not in, when I press Control Space now, I don't get an autocomplete. So this one, I hope someone could add it. I think it's just like that. Now I added one there. So maybe I need to add one here. Ooh. All right. So there I have it. This is my file name. That's the first part. Now I figured out what to put into the Commons API. So now we also need to add it, call for it here. And when you're connecting to something, you use a service. Unfortunately, this one is not either in the autocomplete part. So if I go autocomplete here, I get some other ones, but not the exact thing that we want. So what this is called is the Wikibase MW API, which I think stands for MediaWiki API. Not too tricky. And that's also in the advanced section on the queries. There's a section for MW API things. And that's going to be where we're going to work in. So everything in here is connecting to that. And now we need to tell it what to connect to. So we need to tell this to connect to Commons. There are ways to do things with Wikipedia or Wikisource or other things. So you can search and work with things in categories or like that. So we could see previously when I did the control space, and I think if I do it again here, write service bd :service param, that's something that we're actually going to need to use. So let's go with bd. Not sure if that auto-completes. No, it doesn't. There are a lot of things here that we're sort of on our own, which is a little bit scary. And then we're going to tell Wikibase to use an endpoint. And the endpoint we're using is commons.wikipedia.org. Luckily, this one is not very cryptic. That's pretty easy to understand. And it will be similar if you go to en.wikipedia or ar.wikisource or anything like that. And then this one also need to know, like, well, how are you getting me the things I'm going to work with? And the two common ones, I'm not sure, there's probably more, is either like search it or use the generator like we did.
Yeah, there are only a very few supported methods here in the MV API, so I don't think there are more than 5 or something like that.
Yeah. It's just called generator, so not too tricky. And then we're actually coming into the names sort of that we saw in the Commons special page. And they are all going to have the prefix MW API. So MW API generator that we used to list our things. And the thing that we ticked in the drop-down list was the all pages. And we just use the same parameter here, like exactly the same. If there have the, I think they're all lowercase, so that should be easy. And then the prop that we was looking for was the image info. And here's the really tricky one. And I'm actually going to switch back to the Sandbox here and look at the result. Because we can see here in the result that, let's, if I can, some names for the parameters. We're actually calling II_prop. Oh, sorry.
A trick here, Jan, is to copy the link and put it into the query interface temporarily.
Yes, that's a good trick. So let's do that so we can see what we're working with. I'm putting it here below. Oh, very long. But what we want here is the II_prop and X metadata. That's sort of like telling it to get. So we'll add another here, MW API :II_prop. Oh, and I had a colon there. I shouldn't have it. Next. Metadata. And then I think we needed to tell it to use, well, we have the gap from and gap to. So let's go with that. MW API gap from. And here's the trick then. Here's where we actually inserting our file name, the thing we did in the top. And I think here's the, no, all right, good. Gap 2. This may also be the file name. Ah, and there was the bug. Did you see that? So I came from file name, made semicolon, and pressed enter. And for some reason, it showed me a drop-down list with select. And when I pressed enter, it selected select and wrote select. At least I have it recorded now, so I can reference it in a fabricator ticket later.
Indeed.
And finally, we had the MW API gap namespace, which has to be number 6. Now, I happen to have memorized that 6 is fine, but in the Sandbox, it was nice to give us it with human readable text. But I think if we're looking here, we have in the end gap namespace equals 6. So that's actually not the semicolon there. That's the end of it. That's what we are putting in. Now we need to tell, well, what do we want to use from here in the rest of our query? And I found I'll do like this. So I wanted to have the license, and I want to have the artist, and I want to have the license URL. Not. And then I'm going to do a little bit of copy and pasting here. Because, well, not yet. And then you will have to ask Wikibase. And this is not control space, no autocomplete, API output.
Right.
And here you have to specify what value that you're finding in the top bit do you want to put into license. And to figure out that, I find it the easiest way is to go to the API Sandbox, because it's going to be named something like image info /ii/x metadata /artist. That's how it's going to be named.
Right. And then add value.
Add value in the end to actually say, I want the value, yes.
No, actually, it's not the reference to the value. It's a reference to the attribute. So
yes,
if you want something that isn't named value inside of it, you give it that name.
Yeah.
So essentially, this is XPath, which you use to navigate XML.
Yeah. And what was it now? I forgot. So I had to go ii x metadata. There. And then it was artist. No. Now I'm at license. So let's see. The license was also license short name /@value.
Right.
And then these things will be very similar. The only things that will differ are these in my case here. So I'm going to copy this entire thing, put here and here, and then I'm going to check again what artist was named over here. I think it was just artist, yes. So we can put that here, and the license URL was named license URL like this. So let's copy and paste so we'll get it exactly right. This should be fairly good. Now we're not selecting these things in the top. So let's put those in. Hopefully it will work. Yes, one result. So we have the image link here as usual, and then the actual file name, the sort of the short name of the license, but that a lot of people are using when they're referring to the license, the link, here, so you could create a link in a web page. And then we also get this. I find this a little bit unfortunate. We should have a better way to store our things, but so far we don't. So this is how it's done, and you could use some sort of trickery to try to clean this up. But for now, I'm just going to be happy
This is
with
the best we got until we can query the structured data on commons query service.
Yes. And
So
then
I think
then
that
it
was
will
actually
probably be better. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was our initial idea, but we realized we can't do this just yet.
Yeah.
So we can use this way.
So we could have done something on the query service on commons, but in our particular use case, we wanted to reuse this from outside, and you can't query commons from outside right now because you need to be logged in still, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and I think that is intended to be the case when they roll out the production service as well.
Yeah. So, but this is sort of the query. Now, to put something into, we should have a title here. So we use this new thing, and we're going to call it.
Hello, Nicholas.
What are we going to call it? A lot of fire trucks outside my window right now. I don't know if I should be worried, but it seems to be passing. So at least some further down the street.
We will tell you if your alarm goes off in the background.
Yeah, I'll probably notice myself. So let's give this a title. Find metadata like artist and license for an image. That is sort of what this entire query does. And I'm going to put something here to say change here to select any other image.
Nice.
And of course, you could probably do, I don't know how many things we have with WTP 948. Should I just try this for fun?
Quite a lot, I imagine.
A couple of thousand?
Yeah.
That's not too many.
Oh, it translates but go to a couple commons. Of thousand commons.
API queries, yes.
Yeah.
All right, yes. Let's not go nuts here. But you could do a list with values and say, I want 10 or 15 if you know which items you want or different properties.
Or you could even take all the file names and concat them into the API query and then get 500 at a time.
Yes, that you could do. Yes. Oh, that might be a good thing to do. Yes. Yeah. I don't think there is anything like that. All right. And then I think I'm going to explain this one. Following line transforms the image to be used in the Commons API. And I add something here as well. Maybe a little bit too complete or stating the obvious. So that is sort of the entire query we want to put in. So let's head over to the advanced examples here and see how they look. It takes a little bit of time to load. And we see here we have some showcase queries. And then under advanced, we have different sections, and we're looking for the MediaWiki API. So this is what we're using. So
Perfect.
it will fit in down here. Only 3 so far, so it's a good addition. And let's see. We'll add it in the end. I can perhaps edit the entire section here. So I also see the source code for the others.
Yeah, so you can copy paste it.
They have the translate thing here. I don't know how that works. But it seems to just be using the Sparkle template.
Yeah.
So I'll put it here in the bottom. Is this level 3? 4?
I think so. 4, okay.
And there, and that's gonna need to be closed. And then I can go over here and I can copy and paste this. And paste that here. And then since I already made such a good, paste that there. And let's preview, see how that looks. So yes, there it looks nice. All right.
Yeah.
This looks pretty good. So unfortunately, I don't feel really handy with the translate tool. So I'm gonna hope someone will help me with that. So I'm gonna add it.
Yeah, Nicholas says here that you could just put the translate tag for the title.
Oh, so that's just a. Let's see.
Yeah, let's have a closer look at.
So is it this tag, the translate, and then the other things will come?
Yeah, that and the end tag.
Yeah. So let's put that there. Oh. Oop. With the closing like this.
I think that's it.
Just make sure I didn't break anything.
Exactly.
It doesn't seem to have been broken, at least. Right. Do it like that.
Yeah.
And publish it. And now it doesn't go live, as we said before, since this is on the advanced page, but at least there's another thing for people to be inspired by.
Indeed, and such a useful thing as well.
Hopefully it can be useful for someone else than us.
Yeah, especially as we can't query the structured data on common service.
Yeah.
All
right. So that was my part there.
Right. And I am gonna head straight over to the query service. So as Wikimedians, we can sometimes be annoyed over things, and then we got 2 options. One is to continue to be annoyed about it. We actually got 3. The second one is to fix it, and the third one is to at least bring it up for discussion. And I have been annoyed over something for a while, so right. I'm at least gonna bring it up for discussion this time. Maybe I even take a stab at fixing it at one point. But since we got the query builder, that is obviously great for a lot of people. But as someone who have like browser settings telling every web page to please reduce the motion on websites, because those are really annoying for me. This one is quite heavy. It's quite large, quite disruptive. For example, I sometimes just read things here as I go by, or just happens to like move it between the URL, and it's rather disruptive for me. So I want to just raise an issue that, hey, let's put just a small timing on this, that if I drag the mouse over, it shouldn't pop up. And in case someone like me with within settings telling websites to prefer reduced motion, let's not show it because, hey, accessibility. So where do I tell someone about an issue like this? On a talk page could be one option, But I'm gonna head straight over to Fabricator and do this there. And I did not have the link to Fabricator. Fabricator.wikimedia.org. We also got it in a banner here in case you haven't been before. It looks something like this, and I just happens not to be signed in today. Let's see if I can fix that by jumping out for a second.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, I'm also quickly going to show. So here's a ticket where the query examples are being discussed. So if you're interested in that, you can take a look and weigh in. It's also discussed on the example page, talk page, example talk page.
Right. And speaking of Fabricator, I'm now signed in. And I'm gonna zoom in a little here because I haven't shown this on stream before, I believe. So it might look a little bit different from someone else going in because I got a little bit of a personal dashboard. But for me, anyway, the first thing I want to do is to ensure that someone hasn't already filled a ticket about this. So this is the tricky part, trying to figure out how to find whatever. But I would imagine it would say Wikidata query builder, at least have that type of keyword.
Yeah.
Query.
And this is something that is general for any open source project. It's really good etiquette to first look, did someone already file a ticket for this? So that's something that you always should be an instinct for you when you go to an open source project.
Indeed. So I get a bunch of things here, and when it have this one, it is a ticket of some kind. And when they are gray out, they are somehow closed, or when they are blue like this, they're somehow open. So I'm quickly gonna look through this, and I can't see anything. Here are projects and like code changes. I couldn't find it here, but I'm still not sure. And I happen to see that there is a project actually for the query builder. So I'm just gonna see if there's something related. And this is kind of their workboard and examples. Let's see. How do we make SparkQL code more readable, more accessibility? That's good, but no. Let's see. Sometimes it seems to be referred just as query builder. So I'm actually gonna say query builder. And what could they call that? They could call it pop-up, maybe. Because I imagine there is at least an issue when they created this feature.
Yeah.
So someone said, hey, we want to point from the SparkQL interface to the query builder.
Yeah.
So I might be able to identify at least that task.
Yeah. Or it could be the button.
It could be the button as well. This is kind of related, actually. UX UI suggestion towards a new query helper query builder interface. That seems highly relevant. Yeah, it's about making it more prominent. That's, let's see, is there... Let's see. It seemed very much related. Okay, let's check the query interface. Query builder button tool tip, maybe. And this is usually one of the trickier parts, trying to figure out if there is something I can link to.
Oh. There's
And I
code change
think,
at least with the
uh,
exact thing. Oh, there you
yeah,
have it.
it was very exact actually. Add
Yeah.
query builder button plus tooltip. But I actually think this is the issue for it. Add
Mm-hmm.
query builder button plus tooltip to the query service interface.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to do a bit of research here to see if this was discussed on beforehand and if there was some type of reasoning why it should be the way it is. Um, right. Um, and here is just the code changes.
Oh.
And it looks like nothing. And then something else to check here when you have found an issue like this one is to see, is there an author issue referring to this one? Because if someone would have filed a similar issue to what I want to file, I imagine they would mention this one, and then it would kind of show up here. And this is also super common, as Jan said, among author open source projects. So just good practice to check. But let's see here. No, that's none of those are relevant. That's a similar one, but it's less precise. So I'm gonna use this as my reference, but I feel confident now that I can create a new issue. And I got a create task button here. I'm gonna open that in a new tab for time being, so I can remember that number. To report a software bug, I wouldn't call it a bug, I would call it an enchantment, so to say. So let's see here. I want to have some relevant tags. I think the most precise one isn't one of these two. They are actually the, let's see, and I think it will autocomplete here for me. Wikidata query service UI. That's the one I want. Then I want to give this a title, make the and query builder is a name. Um, the English word disruptive might be a little harsh, but lacking a better one.
Intrusive?
Intrusive? Yeah, that's a very good one. And I think I even spelled it correctly.
Yes.
That's great. And I'm actually gonna make this very simple for myself. I'm gonna explain the current behavior and why I think it should change, and also give like 2 practical suggestions to solve it. And I'm gonna make this super basic. So I essentially gonna say current behavior, then write the current behavior, and go on to really make my point as clear as possible here. Uh, uh, and I have been researching the behavior a little bit, so I know that it behaves in a particular way. When hovering the query um, it, when hovering the query builder buttons, it's pop up. And the English word here is instantaneous,
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Yeah.
And that can't be correct at all. There we go.
There you go. Yeah.
That's a tricky one.
Oh.
So even if a user, an user, this happens even if the user signals that it prefers. Another word I have a hard time spelling. But
PRE.
no.
No,
There we go.
A.
I put
There
an A
you go.
in there. That's
Yes.
my usual one. If it prefers reduced motion, and that this happens even if the user signal that they, and I put an A in that well as well today. Suggested behavior. And there we go. And I'm gonna make this list actually, I think. List item, and that's how you do a list on Fabricator. Disable the pop-up for users. Signal that they prefer reduce motion. I said motions there, motion. And I think that's a okay claim to make. And I would also like that there is a slight delay. So if I head over to the query service interface, just that if I, for example, I'm doing a bit of querying here and I'm heading up to the URL, that doesn't need to happen. And especially if I'm navigating like this, and let's see if I could reproduce it. So for example, now I got stuck here and it's kind of staying, even if there's something behind here I would actually like to access. And if it was just slightly delayed here, like half a second or not even that, we wouldn't have that type of problem. So delay the with a few milliseconds, and let's spell that correctly as well. I'm gonna make a suggestion for 300. That's an initial value, so that it is less disruptive. Let's see here. And I am mentioning something here like prefer reduced motion. And that's like a browser feature. I think it's super common. I think all major browsers support this today. But again, just to make it super clear, I want to be able to refer that to some documentation. So I quickly gonna Google for that term, because I think the browser feature used, and when I say Google, I mean use DuckDuckGo. Yeah, so here we got a bit of a typical description of how it works, code examples, all that someone on Fabricator could need to implement it. So I'm gonna actually make this a link, I believe, like this. And that shouldn't be there. But otherwise, the Wikidata query UI, let's see what it looks like. It gives me a preview without me needing to do anything. Current behavior, when hovering the query builder button, its pop-up displays directly, even if a user is hovering only for a short period of time. This even happens if the user signal that they prefer reduced motion. Suggested behavior, disable the pop-up for users with signal that they prefer reduced motion. delay the display of the pop-up for a few milliseconds so that it's less disruptive. I think that's a reasonable suggestion to make.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I have added the main tag. It's always important to add a tag because there are chapters using Fabricator. Everyone at Wikimedia Foundation, at least in the technical teams and a couple of other teams. So just to make sure that the right people sees it, and if you happens not to add this tag, someone will quickly ask you what project it refers to. You can add me as a subscriber. So that's another thing to do. If you, for example, are adding a fabricator ticket and you have already discussed it with someone that agrees with you, you can actually add them as a subscriber. I know I'm thinking about Nicolas' username here, and let's see if you're using your regular name here. No, you're
Might
using
just
your
be,
last name, of course.
yeah.
Oh, it popped up for a second there. Why? There we go. So, and it will add you as a subscriber by default. Think this looks like a good task currently. I don't think it's a bug, so I haven't used the bug report form. But yeah, so I'm gonna create that task and we will see what it looks like. And this is what it looks like. You can see it got a couple of subscriber by defaults. And what that means, so for example, if someone makes a comment here now, Nicholas will get a pop-up and it will, or get a notification, and he will be able to see that and follow up on it. So that's Fabricator. And I can no longer just make the complaint over this. I have now actually done something to improve it the Wikimedia way. And I might even at least take a stab at one of the suggested behaviors and implementing it if I find the time. But I hope someone else would pick it up actually. So first step, and I think we got a little bit closer. And that was my main task for the day. And I imagine this is kind of what you will do now, Jan, for the bug you found, where you wrote something and it just put select in here. And you
Yeah.
did mention another great thing that you did. You actually said you got it recorded and can reference it. That's another great thing to do if you really need to like properly explain. I don't think uh, this one needed it.
No, that one is so obvious because you can easily reproduce it.
Yeah.
Mine is much more trickier because it didn't happen every time. So if I can point someone to the exact second where it shows up in the video, people can go back and see what I actually are doing.
Exactly. So that's another great thing you can do. And as I was sitting here, I went to the wrong tab and realized, hey, I could improve this ticket a little bit more because I did something, or I didn't do something that I really think one should do, and that's to reference an original ticket of some kind. And I actually want to do that. I want to refer to the query builder button here because someone might go and search for it. And I, for example, don't think I used the word tooltip or so on. So I just want to make sure that, hey, all that searching that I needed to do, let's make that a little simpler for the next person that comes by. So I'm gonna, I think, edit related task. Can I do that? No, that's not relevant here. So I'm actually gonna make it rather simple for myself. When hovering the query builder button, I'm actually just gonna refer to the task here like that. And I think it should automatically like make a link here. It actually shows that in the preview. So one can hover it like this in the final post as well. But it will also, see if I make this change, I think if I reload this task over here, it will say that I have mentioned this task. So if we go down here, yes, we can see that I mentioned this in make the query builder pop up less intrusive. So that way it just becomes slightly more discoverable, which is great because there ends up being a lot of issues in a system like this one. This counter here might be an indicator, so to say. So yeah, that was my task for the day.
All right. And we don't really have something planned for next week yet.
No, not a tame of some kind. Maybe we will just pick something on our lists
Yeah,
next time.
it might turn out because we're participating in Code for Cities event on the weekend, and we're going to try to complete Scotland's government agencies
Right.
during that weekend. So it might be something we're doing on screen as well. I'm not sure. Maybe we might do something else as well.
Yeah, and I have had a request for a bit of maintenance queries and going back to something I did a couple of months back. And I've actually been doing a bit of that in the background for the last few months. So I might take a visit at that. So let's see.
Yep.
We have plenty
We'll
of plans, so to say.
Yes. But with that, let's say happy editing.
Happy editing.